What is up, YouTube? It's me, John Avenger again. I'm about to do another video. We're finally up to the fourth Star Wars movie, episode 4, and we're up to the first film in the original trilogy, the trilogy that everybody loves so much, including me. And that is, of course, Star Wars: A New Hope. Now, I first saw this movie. I didn't see this when I was a really little kid. I first saw it back in the mid 90s when I was like 10. I had originally seen Empire and Jedi before I saw this one, so when I first saw it, I really didn't know what to expect. But when I first saw this movie, I was blown away. I was like, wow! So this is how the original trilogy started, and Lucas did a masterful job with this film. Everybody knows this movie. I mean, if you haven't seen the original Star Wars, where have you been? There's a new one coming out next year, and then this one is going to have most of the cast come back that are still living. And you people know the plots of this. It's very much easier than in the prequels anyway. It starts off with that awesome score from John Williams, and then you see that before that you see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That was the very first time that people had seen that tagline on the big screen. And then, of course, it starts off, the scrolling credits. All the films have that. I forgot to mention that in the prequels. And, it starts off with the Star Destroyer chasing the the Rebel blockade runner. And then we first get a glimpse at C-3PO and R2-D2. He's like, oh, they shut down the reactor. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness. Just classic dialogue. I mean, a cookie, by the way, an Oreo cookie. So, after the Rebel blockade runner gets attacked, you see Leia putting the thing into R2-D2's socket. It's the plan to destroy the Death Star. The rebels, on the ship, fight off a bunch of stormtroopers, and we get our first glimpse of Darth Vader, played by David Prowse. He was the one in the suit. You first see him, it's awesome. You hear the breathing. It's great. People, when they first saw Darth Vader, they probably were blown away by how he looked, and I was the first time I saw him on the big. Well, I haven't seen him on the big screen since episode 3, but when I first saw him when I was 10, I was blown away too. Anyway, C-3PO and R2-D2 try to escape the Rebel blockade runner by going into a pod. They get shot into space. They try to shoot them, and they said, "Hold your fire. There's no life forms because they're droids. They don't have any. They're not life forms." They get sent to Alderaan. I mean, not Alderaan. They get sent to Tatooine. My mistake. And Leia gets captured by the stormtroopers. She gets shot in the head with a stunner, so she doesn't die. They send her to Vader, and she's like, "Oh, Darth Vader, only you can be so bold." And this played by Carrie Fisher, who is still awesome to this day. Love Carrie Fisher. Can't wait to see her again in episode 7. She has the buns that everybody knows about. Everybody knows what Leia looked like in the first film. She talks to Vader, has a word with him, saying the Imperial Senate will not sit still for this, and then he's like, "Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies. I want to know the plans that they sent you." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan." And then Vader comes back and is like, "You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away." Oh, and I forgot to mention before that, he chokes the shit out of this guy. He grabs him by the neck, and he breaks his neck, and he just tosses him. And that's how badass Darth Vader is in this movie. Well, after that scene, one of the one of the men has a word with Darth Vader, and he says, "I replaced the rebel spies to her. Now she's my only link to finding the secret base." And he's like, she'll die before she'll tell you anything. Leave that to me. See? Vader doesn't need somebody to do his dirty work for him. He'll do it himself. And then they told him that the escape pod went into space and there were no life forms on board. And then she's like, and then he's smart. See? He's like, he must have hidden the plans of the escape pod. And that's exactly what she did in R2D2. So you get to see R2 and C3PO walking in the sand, and C3PO says an awesome line, which I remember to this day: "We seem to be made to suffer. It's a lot in life." Yep, it's true. I suffer every day. This week I've been suffering from burns on my face, and from the sun. And Anthony Daniels probably suffered some burns from the sun too, because in Tunisia, where they filmed the first film, it was probably hot as hell, and I wouldn't want to experience that kind of heat. Anyway, R2 wants to go this way, and then 3PO's like, "No, I don't want to go that way. It's too rocky. I want to go this way." They separate. R2 goes deep into Tatooine, where the Jawas are. They find them. They're sneaking in the canyons, and they shoot him. He falls to the ground, and they take him away into the sandcrawler. 3PO sees the sandcrawler, and he waves. And he's like, "Over here! Hey, help! Please help!" I know some people will have a problem with this film, saying that you don't see Luke or Han until later in the film, but it's build up. This film, Lucas knew how to build up the characters. They didn't rush the characters like in other films that I've seen, and it's better that way. I want to see, I want to actually see characters that are fleshed out. And anyway, once they're in the sandcrawler, R2D2 finds C3PO again. They're reunited, and they're happy to see each other. Then, well, it depends which version you've seen. In the original version, they just go they skip to the sand troopers looking for the droids. They find the empty escape pod, and there's dewbacks, but you don't see them in the special edition or in the Blu-ray version. They show CG dewbacks, which I don't think look that bad. I know a lot of people have a problem with the CG. They're like, "Oh, it makes the movie dated." I'm like, but this in the original version, the dewbacks didn't even move. So I think this move didn't really hurt the film that much. Anyway, the droids are sold to Uncle Owen, and of course this is where you first see Luke in his farm getup, played by the great Mark Hamill. He voiced the Joker in freaking Star Wars and Batman, the animated series, and in so many other stuff. I love Mark Hamill. This is definitely his best bunch of films. I've never seen The Guyver, because he was supposed to be The Guyver and he wasn't, and But anyway, you get to see Mark Hamill. He runs off to talk to his Aunt Beru. She says, "Tell Uncle if he gets a translator, be sure it speaks Bocce." It's like, doesn't look like you have much of a choice, but I'll remind them. See, I know this dialogue like the back of my hand because I love these movies so much. And I'm going to be gushing about the original trilogy because as much as I enjoy the prequels, this is the trilogy that, to me, is flawless. There were flaws back when the movie was made, but I'm not going to get into that. I don't want this to be an hour and a half video. Anyway, Luke goes to his Uncle Owen, and Owen wants to purchase some droids, and he talks to 3PO. He says, I bet you're a protocol droid. It's like, "Protocol, yes, my primary function, sir." And he's like, "I have no need for a protocol droid." He's like, "What I need is a droid that understands the binary language of moisture evaporators." And C-3PO says, "Yeah, I can understand it." He says, "Can you speak Bocce?" And he's like, "Of course I can, sir. It's like a second language to me." And then, bam, I'll take this one. And he calls Luke over and tells him to take 3PO and this R5D4. It's not R2D2 at first. He wants to purchase another cheaper droid. And then Luke said, "But I wanted to take you to Tosche Station to pick up some power converters." And he says, "You could waste time with your friends when your chores are done. Go on, get to it." And then Luke is peeved, so he takes C-3PO and R5D4 away. R5D4 malfunctions. His motivator explodes out of his head, and he shows Owen that, and then 3PO suggests to take R2D2 instead, and they take R2D2. Well, it's a plot convenience, but hey, we need R2 in the film. There's no substitutes for the great R2D2. Anyway, he takes the droids to clean them up and fix them up, and they start talking. Luke is just like, "It's not fair. I'm never going to get out of this planet." And he talks to 3PO, and 3PO's like, "Is there anything I can do to help?" It's like, "No, unless you could speed up the harvest or teleport me off this rock." And he's like, I don't think so, sir. I'm only a droid. I'm not very knowledgeable about such things. And I don't even know what planet I'm on. And then Luke says, if you're in the bright center of the universe, you're in the planet that his father's from. And it's like, I see, sir. Oh, you could call me Luke. I see, Sir Luke. Sir Luke. Because, Anthony Daniels is a Brit, so they do say a lot of sirs over there. Anyway, then they talk about, he's like, oh, the rebellion against the Empire, which is what this connects this whole film, this whole series. Anyway, yeah, and they said, have you been in many battles? Several, but they don't remember because in episode 3, I forgot to mention that Captain Antilles wipes their memory clean. That's why R2 can't fly in the originals, and that's why 3PO doesn't remember much about what happened in the prequels. Anyway, Luke finds something jammed inside of R2D2, and then bam, we get that classic, iconic image of Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope," which they've parodied in so many cartoons and so many other movies, and even in video games, they kind of referenced it in like Mega Man X. Anyway, he says, "What's this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just a message." And it's like, "Who is she? She's beautiful." And of course, he doesn't know who that is. But excuse me, any Star Wars fan would know, who Leia is. Anyway, he wants to hear the entire message. R2 can't do it because it's only a piece of it. And they said it seems to be a property of an Obi-Wan Kenobi, a resident of these parts, and it's a private message for him. And then Luke is like, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wonder if he needs his own bed Kenobi. And Ben lives around the Dune Sea, and he's kind of a strange old hermit. And I can need to hear them play back the entire message, and then he gets pissed off because R2 he takes this bolt off of R2's body, and then the message disappears, and Luke is like, wait, where did she go? Come on, play back the entire message. And then 3PO bangs him on the hat and bops him on the head and says, come on, the message you were just playing, that's inside your rusty innards. And then Luke gives him the bolt, and then he leaves. And then 3PO's like, no, I don't think he likes you at all. No, I don't like you either. And then R2's like, he moans. And then Luke goes to have dinner with his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, kind of like Peter Parker with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben, similar to that. See similarities there. He has some, he starts to eat dinner and drink his blue milk, and he talks to Uncle Owen. He says, "Oh, I think that R2D2 might have been stolen." He said, "What makes you think that?" And he's like, "I stumbled across a recording of when I was cleaning him, and he says he belongs to somebody called Obi-Wan Kenobi, who we all know who it is. If you've seen the prequels, you know who he is." Anyway, they talk, and he says, "Oh, he knew my father. He died about the same time as your father, and like he knew my father. Like I told you, forget it. I want you to clean those droids so that they could get ready for the harvest." And Luke wants to go to the academy to become a pilot in the Rebel Alliance. And Owen's like, no, I need you here for harvest. I need you here to farm for me. And then Luke gets pissed off and he leaves again. Luke gets pissed off a lot in these films, but I can relate to him. I know what it's like not to be able to go where you want to go when you want to go. Anyway, Luke goes, he walks off. Aunt Beru says to Owen, Luke is just not a farmer. He has too much of his father in him. And he says, that's what I'm afraid of. And then you get that awesome double sunset with John Williams' awesome score. I love that score. It gives me chills when I hear it. It's like, I love that music. That is some of the greatest music I've ever heard in a movie. Love or hate Star Wars, you gotta admit, that music cannot be duplicated in any other film. It's just iconic. I love that music so much. It sets the tone for that scene. There's no dialogue in that scene. It's just Luke looking at two suns on Tatooine, and the emotion you get from that music it's comforting. It sets a really good tone for the film. Then Luke goes off and he tries to find 3PO, and 3PO's like, R2D2 he left. He went to go find Obi-Wan, and Luke is like, oh no. And then Luke gets his binoculars. He starts to look through them and tries to find R2D2. And 3PO's like, these asteroids are quite out of hand. Even I can't understand their logic at times. And then he's like, can we go after? 3PO's like, can we go after him? And Luke is like, no, it's too dangerous for the Sand People. We'll have to wait until morning. And then they wait till morning. Uncle Owen's trying to find Luke. He talks to Emperor, and this is the last time you see them. You know what happens to them. And there will be spoilers if you have not seen Star Wars. I mean, what are you waiting for? Go see it, because this is going to contain spoilers. All of these reviews will. Anyway, Luke gets on the land speeder, which is iconic. He tries to find R2D2 with C3PO, and then you see the Sand People or the Tusken Raiders. They're riding on banthas. They tracking down Luke and C3PO. They find R2D2 in the dune near the Dune Sea. And then Luke and C3PO, well, they look through binoculars again. They hear the Sand People, and then Luke gets attacked by one of them, and he goes, it's just great. Even those sounds you recognize if you're a Star Wars fan. They knock Luke the fuck out, and then he's underground, and they're trying to steal this stuff from his land speeder. Obi-Wan comes out, and he scares them away. I like the original sound. In the special editions, they changed that sound. It's like, and then the special editions is like, and then the other one's like, it just sounds off-putting. I don't know whose idea was it to put a sound effect like that in the scene. It made it kind of laughable. Anyway, Tusken Raiders run off. Obi-Wan appears. He puts his hands on Luke's head. I guess he's checking see if Luke is all right. Then he takes his hood off and he says hello there. It's played by the late great Alec Guinness, who is a great Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's still the best. I love Ewan McGregor, but this guy really, he was Obi-Wan. Anyway, he talks to R2D2 saying, come here, don't be afraid. And he says, don't worry, he'll be all right. He picks Luke up. He says, Luke, you're fortunate to be all in one piece. And Luke is like, Ben Kenobi, I'm glad to see you. And, he picks him up and he's like, tell me, young Luke, what are you doing this far? And he's like, oh, this little droid. He's looking for his former master. He claims to be the property of an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Is he a relative of yours? You know who he's talking about? And Obi-Wan's like, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time. And he says, oh, he's not dead. He's not yet. Of course I know him. He's me. I haven't gone by the name of Obi-Wan since before you were born, which is the prequels, so they mentioned that. They talk a little bit more, and they said we should get indoors because the Sand People will be back in greater numbers. Luke goes to find C-3PO. They find his arm. He's busted up a little bit. They dig him out of the sand, and then he fixes 3PO's arm when he gets home. Obi-Wan talks to Luke about, the Clone Wars, and that he was a Jedi before, just like his father, and his father was the best pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior, and then he was a good friend. And then he gives him the lightsaber. It's Luke's blue lightsaber, the one he has for 2 films. It's an awesome thing. You get to see it's like, and then Obi-Wan talks about, how over 1,000 generations the Jedi Knights were guardians of peace in the Republic, and then before the Dark Times, before the Empire. And then, of course, we have, the famous speech with Luke saying, how did my father die? And Obi-Wan is like a young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hump down and destroy the Jedi Knights, which is pretty much what happened. And then he said, you betrayed and murdered your father. Metaphor, by the way. Then Luke is, is like, Vader was seduced, Obi-Wan's like, Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force. And Luke is like, the Force? And of course we all know what the Force is. The Force is what gives a Jedi his powers. It's an energy field surrounding all living things. It binds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. It's an awesome speech. I mean, the dialogue in this movie is just phenomenal. It's grade A freaking writing right there. Anyway, Obi-Wan gets the message from Leia, and she says, years ago you've helped my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in the struggle against the Empire. And she's really talking about Bail Organa because she doesn't know, a certain thing. Anyway, it says she says you must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Bingo. End of the transmission. Then Obi-Wan says, you must learn the ways of the Force if you're going to come with me to Alderaan. And Alderaan, Luke's like, Alderaan? I can't go to Alderaan. I have to stay here and, I'm late. I'm in for it as it is. And Obi-Wan's like, I need your help, Luke. She needs your help. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing, and I can sympathize with them. And Luke is like, I can't. I have work to do. It's not like I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do right now. It's such a long way from here. And then he's like, that's your uncle talking. And then he's like, learn about the Force, Luke. And he's like, I can take you as far as Anchorhead. You can get a transported to Mos Eisley or whatever. And Obi-Wan says, you must do what you feel is right, of course. Then you get back to the Death Star. You get to see the Empire talking. I'm not going to explain everything in the film because it would take me an hour and a half, so I'll just breeze through it as I can. The Red Empire's talks. Darth Vader comes out. You get to see Peter Cushing playing Grand Moff Tarkin, who is great in the film. Rest in peace, Peter Cushing. He says that the Emperor has dissolved the Council permanently. Everybody from the Old Republic is gone. Darth Vader's like, all the plans we refer to will soon be back in our hands. One of the Imperial officers says, any attack on the rebels against this station is a threat, no matter what technical data they obtain. This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it. And Vader's like, don't be too proud of this technological terror you constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. And of course he badmouths Vader. Vader tries to choke him out. Peter Cushing tells him, no, release him. And then Vader lets him go. He's lucky, but, for now. And then Peter Cushing's like, as soon as this station is operational, we're going to crush the rebellion with one swift stroke. End the scene. Then we get to, the scene in the Sandcrawler where Luke sees the Jawas are dead and he thinks the Sand People did it, and Obi-Wan's like, no. These blast points are much too accurate for Sand People. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise. And they're like, why would Imperial troops want to slaughter Jawas? And then he goes home in his land speeder, and Obi-Wan tries to stop him, but no, he just goes. He finds his home is burnt down to the ground. Uncle Owen and Emperor have reduced to bones. Luke is pissed off, and then he goes back. And then you cut to another next scene, which is the mind probe trying to probe Princess Leia's head or her neck or whatever. They don't show it. And then she's a little bit scared, and then Vader's in there with her, and then they close the door because it's a PG movie, so they're not going to show gore. Not that much gore. Anyway, they get back to Luke. He goes back in his land speeder. The droids are burning the bodies of the robes of the Jawas. And then Obi-Wan's like, you would have been killed too if you were there, and the droids will be in the hands of the Empire. Luke is like, I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. Bingo. That's all you need. And then when we get to Mos Eisley Spaceport, which is awesome. It's this sand, this city filled with dewbacks and Ronto creatures in the special editions, and there's people all over the place. They arrived in the cantina, which has some of the most awesome music, like, and that's where you meet Chewbacca, Han Solo, everything, these guys that harass, the bartenders, like, no, we don't serve their kind here. Droids, they have to wait outside. We don't want them here. Segregation. I can understand that. Even in the galaxy far, far away, Luke goes to get a drink, and then this ugly Mama, I forgot his name, that alien creature that has like big lips, and then the other guy that has a pig nose is like, he doesn't like you, and Luke was like, I'm sorry, and he's like, I don't like you either. You better watch yourself. We're wanted men. We have a death sentence on 12 systems. And it's like, I'll be careful. You'll be dead. And then Obi-Wan tries to calm things down. Sorry about that. Luke gets pushed out of the way. Obi-Wan takes his lightsaber, cuts off the freaking alien creature's arm, and it's badass, and there's some blood. So, just, that's the only bit of pretty much blood in the film. There's not a lot of blood. Pretty violent for 1977 and a PG movie, because there were no PG-13 movies at the time. And then after that, people act like there's nothing. It's kind of like in New York City when something happens, people just ignore it after a while. Anyway, you skip all that. You get to the awesome introduction of Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford. Bless that guy, man. He's been in great stuff over the last 40 years. The guy is still a great actor. I still can watch his films. He's great in this movie. He's the most badass anti-hero that you can get. He's like Snake Plissken before Snake Plissken. Anyway, he talks to Luke and Obi-Wan that it's gonna cost them 10,000 all in advance to get them to use the Millennium Falcon from Tatooine to Alderaan, and Obi-Wan tries to deal with them. He says, we can pay you 2,000 now and 15 when we get to Alderaan. It's like 17. Okay, you guys got yourselves a ship. Me in Docking Bay 94. Then the stormtroopers show up and they try to check out what's happened. The mess that happened in the cantina. Luke and Obi-Wan leave. Han gets ready to leave to take them to Alderaan. He meets up with Greedo. They have a few words. I'm not going to explain everything. That who shot first, I don't really care whether it was Han or Greedo. They talk. He says, "Oh, Jabba wants his money now." Oh yeah, I bet you have over my dead body, all that great stuff. Han shoots him. Greedo's dead. He flips a coin to the bartender and he leaves. See, that's how badass Han Solo is in the movie. Then you get back to they get to the Millennium Falcon, and he's like, "Oh, what a piece of junk!" And they board on, and then the stormtroopers show up. It's like, "Stop that ship! Blast them!" And then they're shooting, and then they run back, and they say, "Chewie, get us out of here!" They strap up and they go into space and fly off, and they go into head to Alderaan. Then I think is it a TIE fighter? No, I think it was a Star Destroyer yeah, I think it's a Star Destroyer that shoots at them, and they get ready to go into light speed, which is great. They go and they blast into space. Then after that, you get a scene with Grand Moff Tarkin and Leia when he touches her face, and she's like, "I recognize your foul stench when I was brought on board." And Peter Cushing is just he's just chewing up scenery. He's like charming to the lost. He makes it so easy, man. He really did. I could see why he was in a lot of Hammer horror films. Anyway, he says, "Oh, since you won't give us the location of the rebel base, we're going to use this destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan." And Leia's like, "No, Alderaan is peaceful. We have no weapons." And then the Grand Moff Tarkin's like, "I go tired of asking this, so it'll be the last time. Where is the rebel base?" And Leia's like, "Dantooine. They're on Dantooine." And he says, "You see, Lord Vader, she can be reasonable. Continue with the operation. You will fire when ready." And she's like, "What? No." And no, it's not like that happening. It's better acting than that. Then they blow up Alderaan into a million pieces. Obi-Wan feels it like he's having a heart attack, and Luke is like, "Wait a minute, what's wrong?" And he's like, "I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as the millions of voices cried out in terror and suddenly silence. I feel something terrible has happened." And then Obi-Wan tells him to go with his exercises. Han shoots Luke on the leg or whatever, and with the seeker ball, and he's like, "Hokey weapons and ancient religion ain't match for a good blaster by your side, kid." And there's a banter between Luke and Han. He's like, "You don't believe in the Force, do you?" And Han's like, "Kid, I've flown from one side of the galaxy to another. I've seen a lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything that makes me believe that there's one all-powerful force controlling everything." And then Obi-Wan gives Luke the blast shield, which he can't see anything. He tries to use his feelings instead of his sight, and then he does fight the Seeker Ball back, and then Han's like, "It's luck," and Obi-Wan's like, "In my experience, there's no such thing as luck." Then they appear that they're heading to Alderaan. They get out of light speed, and then Alderaan is destroyed. Then there's a TIE fighter that's headed towards the Death Star. Han's like, "Where did this come from?" And then it's a great scene. You get to see the Death Star for the first time from the perspective of the Millennium Falcon. He's like, and Obi-Wan's like, "That's no moon. It's a space station." And Han's like, "It's too big to be a space station." They get sucked into the tractor beam, so they can't get out. And Han's like, they're not gonna get me without a fight. And I'm like, that's great, that's awesome acting. And then you hear the music, then you see the inside of the Death Star. It's huge. There's stormtroopers everywhere. You see Darth Vader and all the other Imperial officers there. Yeah, they scan the Millennium Falcon to see if they can find the people inside. Luke and Han and everybody, but they're hiding under the compartments. Uh, they trick one of the stormtroopers to come. Well, two stormtroopers to coming into the Millennium Falcon. It's like, can you give us a hand with this? And then you hear the blasting, and then Han and Luke dress up as stormtroopers, which is very memorable. I have one of the figurines of that, and they go into the room where they R2D2 discovers where the tractor beam is, where they can shut it down. Obi-Wan goes to shut it down by himself, and Luke is like, I want to go with you, and Obi-Wan's like, look, be patient, Luke, stay here and watch after the droids. They must be delivered safely, or other star systems will suffer the same fate as Alderaan. Your destiny lies in a different path from mine. And he's like, the Force will be with you always. And then he just leaves. And I'm like, wow, that's an epic finale. That's the last time he sees Luke alive before he dies. Anyway, Han's like, where did you dig up that old fossil? Which is great. I love that line. Is great. And he's like, Ben is a great man. And he's greatness to get us into trouble. I didn't hear you give any good ideas. Well, and then their banter is just great. Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. And then there's the C-3PO says he says that R2D2's found someone. And he says he's found Princess Leia. And it's like, the princess, she's here. Princess, where is she? And then Han's like, Princess, what's going on? And it says it's level 5 detention block AA-23. I'll remember that for the rest of my life thanks to this movie. And they're like, I'm afraid she's scheduled to be terminated. Oh no, Han and Luke said we have to do something, we gotta help her, and Han's like, no, the old man wants us to stay right here, and it's like, I'm not going anywhere, they're gonna execute her. Just a few minutes ago you said you didn't want to get captured, now all you want to do is stay. Marching into the detention area is not what I had in mind, but they're gonna kill her. Better her than me. And just great stuff, man. I love these movies. Anyway, he convinces Han by saying Leia's rich. If you rescue her, the reward is going to be beyond any wealth that you can imagine. It's like, I can imagine quite a bit. You'll get it. I better. You will. It's great stuff, man. It's like, you better be right about this. Then they try to say, oh, what's the plan? They try to put these handcuffs basically on Chewie. And Chewie's like, Rrr! And I'm like, okay, you put them on him, Han. And 3PO says a funny line. He's like, what if R2 and I supposed to do if we're discovered here? Lock the door and hope they don't have blasters. And it's like, that isn't very reassuring. And then they leave. Their plan works to an extent. One of the Imperial officers like, where are you taking this thing? And it's like, the prisoner, cell block 1138. And it's like, I wasn't notified. I have to clear it. And then Chewie gets loose. He starts freaking throwing guys left and right. Han and Luke are blowing the shit out of everybody in the room. And then they try to find the cell block and said that the princess is in. It's like, 2187. You go get her. I'll hold her here. Han talks to one of the Imperial officers on one of the what was it, the transmitter or whatever, and he says, situation normal. What happened? And he's like, we had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's all right here. Everything's fine. Thank you. How are you? Han just cracks me up in this movie. And he's like, negative. We have a reactor leak here. Just give us a few minutes to lock it down. A large leak, very dangerous. Who is this? What's your operating number? And then he shoots it. Han is so freaking awesome. And he's like, Luke, we're going to have company. And then Luke finds the cell. He opens it. He sees Leia for the first time. He nods his head a little bit. And she's like, aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? And then he takes his helmet off. And he's like, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. Just epic. And then she's like, you're who? And he's like, I'm here to rescue. I'm here with Ben Kenobi. And she's like, Ben Kenobi, where is he? Come on. They leave. And Darth Vader's like, I sense that Obi-Wan is here. And Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin is like, what makes you think so? It's like a tremor in the Force. The last time I felt it was in the presence of my own master. And he's like, surely he must be dead by now. And Vader's like, don't underestimate the Force. And then, you know, they say, oh, we have an emergency in the detention block AA-23, and it's like, Obi-Wan is here, the Force is with him. And it's like, if you're right, he must be allowed to escape. And then, you know, Vader's like, no, I gotta face him alone. That's not his plan. He wants to fight me one-on-one. We all know that. Then Luke, Han, and Leia, they try to escape. You know, there's a lot of bantering. They're shooting, and, you know, like, this is some rescue. You got a way to getting out. And he's like, brain, sweetheart, shoot you. And then she just grabs Luke's gun and blasts a hole into the freaking garbage chute. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? And she's like, somebody's got to save our skins. And then they jump into the garbage chute. All of them jump in there, and there's a scene, they're trying to blast their way out. The walls are starting to close in on them, and they're like, oh, come on, embrace it with something. And Luke forgot that he had the little comm link to contact C-3PO, and he's like, 3PO, where are you, 3PO? And then 3PO's like, are you there, sir? 3PO? And we've had some problems. It's like, will you shut up and listen to me? Shut down all the garbage mashers in the detention level, will you? Do you copy? Shut down all the garbage mashers in the detention level. Shut down all the garbage mashers at the detention level. And then C-3PO's like, no, shut them all down, hurry. And then they shut it down. R2-D2 shuts it down. Before that, Han says a cool line. He's like, one thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner. He has some great one-liners in this movie. Anyway, after that, they celebrate, and then 3PO thinks they're dying. It's hilarious. And then and they said open the garbage chute, the door, and then they open the door. They get out. They get out of the stormtrooper costumes, and then Han and Leia have a little banter. She's like, I don't know who you are or where you came from, but from now on, you do as I tell you. And Han's like, no, listen, your worshipfulness. Let's get one thing straight. I take orders from just one person, me. So wonder you're still alive. And then she's like, will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way? It's classic. I just love the lines in these movies. They just put a smile on my face. And it's like, no reward is worth this, and there's not. Anyway, they try to get off they get out of the Death Star. Well, before they get out of the Death Star, Luke sees Ben fighting Obi-Wan, and Vader's like, before that he says, we meet again at last. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Obi-Wan's like, you're only a master of evil. They have their epic battle. Obi-Wan gets distracted. He sees Luke, and then he smiles at Vader. And then he goes like this, and then Vader cuts his robe, and then he just disappears. There's no sign of him. And then Luke is like, no! And he starts shooting at him, starts to shoot Vader. There's some stormtroopers in the way, and Leia's like, no, Luke, it's too late. He's dead. Lock the door, kid. He shoots the door, the lock, and then Vader, disappears. And Obi-Wan in spirit tells him, run, Luke, run. So they could escape. They escape the Death Star. Luke is bummed out because, Obi-Wan died. I'm skipping for time because, this review's already over 30 minutes. Anyway, then you get the scene with the TIE fighters where Han and Luke shoot through these freaking guns outside of the cockpit or whatever. And they win, they win. They blow them all up. They said, we did it. And then it's over. After that, they fly to Yavin, where the rebels are. They have the X-wing pilots. Leia meets with the commander and tells him about the plan to destroy the Death Star. R2-D2 puts it in. They download the plans, and then one of the commander-in-chiefs there, he talks to the rebel pilots about how the fighters have to go into the Death Star's trench and shoot the target area with proton torpedoes into the Death Star, which will cause a chain reaction and blow up the Death Star. So they have that talk. Luke gets ready to leave to go up against the Death Star, in his X-wing fighter. He has a bickering with Han, saying, take care of yourself. That's what you're best at, isn't it? You know, you're just leaving. And then Han's like, Luke, may the Force be with you. And Luke gets pissed off. He leaves. Han goes off on his own. Leia comes and comforts Luke, and she's like, what's wrong? And he's like, oh, it's Han. He says, I wish he would change his mind. And she says a great line. He has to follow his own path. Nobody can choose it for him. And Luke is like, I only wish Ben was here. And then she kisses him on the cheek. He smiles. In the extended cut, if you see the special edition, he has a scene with Biggs, which I think was good. I think that I'm glad they added it because it gave Biggs more screen time. His friend from Tatooine, and they talk, and then they get ready to fly. The X-wings are flying into space, and they get ready, and then Luke hears Obi-Wan, Luke, the Force will be with you. And then they go fight the Death Star. It's an epic battle. It's pretty long. You know, Luke's ship gets hit, and a bunch of the fighters die. You know, Darth Vader goes with two TIE fighter fighters, pilots, to go fight the rebels. And then, you know, epicness. They get into the trench. Luke, Biggs, and Biggs, and Wedge are the three that make it out alive. You know, at the in the final act. Before, you know, the Death Star is destroyed, they fly in. Wedge gets hit. He flies off. Darth Vader says, "Let him go. Stay on the leader." They kill Biggs. Luke is all alone. And then when Vader thinks he's gonna blow him up, Han comes out of nowhere. It's great with the Millennium Falcon. He goes, "Yahoo!" And then he shoots the two TIE fighters. They get destroyed. Vader's ship is like going in circles, and he's like, oh, oh. And then he's like, "You're all clear, kid. Then let's blow this thing and go home." He shoots the freaking proton torpedoes without using the Navo computer, and they go in. He goes, and then they fly off. Peter Cushing is observing. He knows something went wrong, and then kablooey, the Death Star blows up, and the rebels win. And then you get the final scene where Luke gets out of his X-wing fighter, and Leia hugs him, and she's so happy. And then he sees Han again. He's like, "I knew you'd come back. I just knew it." It puts a smile on my face because I love that scene. And just it's great to see these few people really had a lot of chemistry, and you can see why they were chosen for these roles. Han snuffs him, and he's like, you know, it's in a friendly way. And then they hug. They have a group hug. And then R2-D2 is messed up because he got shot. 3PO's like, if you have to repair him. If any of my parts can help him, I'll be glad to donate him. And then Luke's like, he'll be all right. They go off. They have the celebration where Leia bestows a medal upon Luke and Han for their bravery in the fighting in the Battle of Yavin. They put them on their neck. They smile, and Leia smiles, and then they bow to her. R2 gets fixed up. C-3PO's nice and golden and shiny. Chewbacca roars, and then it's the end of the movie, and I'm like, wow, it's a masterpiece. I love this movie. You know, if you have not heard of Star Wars, you gotta see it. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that I just love, and it's so iconic. I should have seen this movie when I was like 5. I would have seen it like 1,000 times, but I got it on Blu-ray. There's some changes that could have been, you know, left alone, but besides that, the film itself is a masterpiece. I love this movie. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And I just, you know, it's a movie that changed cinemas. I could see why it was such a hit with kids and people back in the 70s, and why the toys sold so well, and the merchandising of everything else. They made so many video games and comics and everything. It became a huge global phenomenon, and I'm glad it did. And Lucas, you know, that movie, A New Hope, is what it made your career flourish. It really did. You have to respect your fans because they're the ones that made your movie a hit. You know, American Graffiti was a good movie, but it was Star Wars that really put you on the map. And I love this movie to death. I will always love this film no matter what they do to it in the next format. It's a classic. I love this movie. Go see it if you haven't seen it. And watch this video when it's done. And I will talk to you next time. We're going to get to consider the best Star Wars movie of all time. And that is Empire Strikes Back. So, see you guys next time.